Batman has Robin. Superman has Crypto. Beast Boy has Raven. And Captain Man has Kid Danger. So, without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another series review. And today's series review is none other than Henry Danger. He was just a kid looking for an after-school job. He was an indestructible man who needed a sidekick, and together they fight crime. Their name, Kid Danger and Captain Man. So yes, let's get into the story. So essentially, Henry Hart, a young high school student, decides one day that after school he wants a job. And then he finds an ad for a job at a place named Junk and Stuff. The advert doesn't quite say what the job is for or what his role will be, but Henry soon learns that something is amiss. Gooch, the guy on the till, decides to send Henry down in the lift, and when Henry gets down to the bottom of the basement, he soon realizes that he is in the midst of greatness. Yes, he's in the midst of Captain Man, but he's confused. Why does Captain Man want to hire him, and why is Captain Man having a job ad? Henry doesn't quite know fully that it's Captain Man yet. All he knows that it's Ray Manchester, and Ray Manchester jokes about with him about wanting the job. He says, "Do you want the job? Oh, whoa, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna blow your mind." So Ray transforms into his Captain Man and then explains that he's becoming tired of being the only one helping out Swellview. He needs a sidekick. He needs help. So he hires Henry, and the pair of them go round the city fighting crime. At first, Henry is a bit of an amateur, but after a while he begins to get used to this life of fighting crime and begins to outwit most of the criminals. However, one day down the line, his whole both-sided of his life begins to be tested as Charlotte, his sister Piper, and Jasper all begin to cotton on that something's not quite right with Henry. First, it's the beeping watch, to the secrecy at Junk and Stuff, and eventually Henry ends up working alongside all of them. However, this comes at the cost of his personal life, and the cost of his relationship with Captain Man. Each time Captain Man swears to try and mind wipe his family members and his friends, but Henry, after seeing what the mind wipe machine can do, can't with his own good consciousness let this go on. Charlotte pretty much figures out that Henry is Kid Danger, whilst Jasper accidentally stumbles upon it by accident, believing that he knows Henry's secret, but not quite the one about Captain Man. Henry accidentally reveals this to Jasper, and then they debate about wiping Jasper's mind. Piper, however, accidentally falls down into the basement and catches Henry and Ray in the act when the pair decide to transform into Captain Man and Kid Danger. The comedic series then eventually ends with a cliffhanger of Henry pretty much saving the city. A giant blimp is about to take over Swellview, but Henry decides to chuck Captain Man off of the blimp, full well knowing what he signed up for. The series ends with people believing at first that Henry's dead. However, it turns out that he faked his death in a way to pretty much preserve his legacy as Kid Danger. So I've recently been binging this series, and what do I think of it? Honestly, I've always loved this series. Not only because it is so comedically funny, but also because it has a really good, strong narrative behind it. And in a way, I feel like the relationship between Ray and Kid Danger is a little bit less abusive than the relationship between Batman and Robin. Batman always pushes Robin over the edge, whereas
Ray is more protective. He wants Kid Danger to help save the city, but if things that are very personal to Captain Man start to get in the way, Ray will always try and shield Henry from the danger. And when Henry finally proves himself at the end of this series, due to his strong relationship and bond with his group, it just shows how willing Henry is to do the job that needs to be done. There's also a lot of great comedy gags in this series, from Ray always trying to hit on Henry's mum, to essentially a lot of other gags where Charlotte is always pretty much putting Henry and Schwoz and the group in line. That's someone I forgot to mention. Schwoz. So, for anyone who hasn't watched the series and is wondering who Schwoz is a Slovakian, or let's just say it's very hard to know exactly where he's from. But Schwoz is a foreign scientist who comes to the United States to help in Swellview and pretty much starts fixing all the technology for Ray and Henry. But at first, he's very reluctant. Schwoz comes in after Pooch. Pooch decides to leave at some point during the first series or so. Not quite sure why this happens, but it's definitely a good mix-up as the series goes along and the characters start to develop. But Schwoz can be very lazy. His sister looks like a horse. His girlfriend ends up leaving him. His robotic girlfriend. To be fair, though, if Charlotte wasn't there, it's kind of a case that Charlotte puts Schwoz in his place as well, because Schwoz doesn't really care too much about helping Henry and Ray all the time. But Charlotte pretty much could easily do Henry or the guy's job like that. She's more of the technical side, though. Jasper uses his expertise of the city to pretty much call in any events, anytime anything bad happens. Piper is the local gossip queen, so she has all the social details of anything that's happening in Swellview. After Henry leaves, however, he decides to move off to another city and leave behind Captain Man to his devices to help Swellview move forward. This is also primarily because of the fact that Henry is presumed to be dead. So overall, what do I give a score of the Henry Danger series overall? Well, from Henry going as the gullible young man who's always making jokes with Ray, to the strong, empowered man who isn't always right and learns from his mistakes and his relationships with people, I've got to give Henry Danger a solid 10 out of 10. It is that good of a series. I highly recommend people watching it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next series review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible day.